But probably the Democratic Party politician that is most responsible for the insidious Kahana infiltration of the Democratic Party is, without a doubt, Frager's partner in funding the Ateret Kohanim movement, and that is this man, Mr. Dov Hikind. A Kahanist terrorist in his own right, the head of Jewish Defense League, not only the Jewish Defense League, but one of its spin-off groups. And we're talking about a group that bombed banks, and because after the ADL listed the banks that they say didn't do business with Israel, the group that Hikind headlined went out and firebombed about a dozen of these banks in New York City. So this is the kind of terrorist that we're talking about. But he managed to parlay his popularity amongst New Yorkers into a political position, into a state assemblyman. And so when Dov Hikind enters the state legislature, you would think, because of his racist right-wing views, he would join the Republicans. First of all, talking about his Kahanist career, he didn't try to put it behind. He didn't try to leave it, in his past. He still, till this day, is proud of as he says, I'm proud of every single moment. Let me make that very clear. I never had a problem when people spoke about encouraging Palestinians to move to other parts of the Middle East, aka ethnic cleansing. Now, Kahana died in 1990, so did Hikind make a break with him at that point? No. Once Kahana died, he passed the reins over to his son, Binyamin Kahana, and Hikind was a massive supporter of Binyamin Kahana and the continuation of the Kahana movement and Kahana Chai. And so just so you don't think that perhaps the son may have been a little bit more liberal than his father, just a few choice quotes from Binyamin so you can see what Hikind supported all these years as a state assemblyman. According to Binyamin Kahana, in his own words, there are no Arabs that are innocent. They are an enemy. And with an enemy, we wage war. The law of vengeance applies to them. Vengeance is not a vague concept. Vengeance on the Gentiles. It is well established in the laws. We must kill without thinking that one of them is innocent. Wow, that's Hikind for you. Okay, so as I said, you'd think that someone as openly racist as this would not find a home in the Democratic Party, but that's exactly where he did find a home. He ran for state assembly on the Democratic ticket. This was patently ridiculous. By what basis does he have a right to run in the Democratic Party primary? I mean, if you look back at the newspaper records, you see what he took the time to speak out about. This is a time when, going back to the mid-'80s, when queer people, when gay and lesbian people are fighting for their rights. And I'm not talking about fighting for the rights to marry or fighting for the right to adopt. We're talking about fighting for the very simple right to not be fired from your job if they find out that you're gay, to not be kicked out of your own apartment if it turns out you're lesbian. Basic rights. And it wasn't just queer people, there were Jewish queer people also marching through the streets, demanding equality. But to Hikind, he was the number one opposer of this gay rights legislation that was being trying to be passed in the New York State legislature. According to Hikind, this legislation is dangerous. It presents their lifestyle as perfectly legitimate. Two men holding hands and two women holding hands. This is the nightmare scenario that he's worried about, and so he opposed the most basic anti-discrimination laws. Some civil rights leader, right? This is a Democratic Party politician. Of course, admittedly, he did see himself as a civil rights leader fighting for the rights of certain groups. The group that he was most outspoken, perhaps, or one of the groups that he was so outspoken about, was white folk, European Americans. He says that's the problem. Reverse discrimination. There is a lot of reverse discrimination that takes place in this state. Many people who happen to be white are being discriminated against. This issue is something no one has looked seriously at. They launched this whole campaign. We need to end anti-white racism, as if this is the biggest problem plaguing society. This is Dov Hikind, you know. But of course, you know, the number one political position that he staked out, that he used his, his political power for, was to advance the cause of Zionism, of the state of Israel. And of course, to impugn anyone who opposed anything that Israel did as an anti-Semite, as a hater of Jewish people. Now, how did he manage to make this manifest in New York City politics? Well, this is how he did it. In his own words. D'Amato won with less than 1% of the vote. Okay, we're talking about running for New York State Senate. My community was responsible for that difference. And I was involved in that race day and night. The following year, it was Giuliani. And the following year, it was Pataki, Giuliani running for Republican mayor of New York City. George Pataki running for Republican governor of New York State. All of these are Republicans. I thought he was supposed to be a Democrat. Yet he used all his political capital to funnel the vote to the Republican Party candidates. According, in his own words, Hikind says, I endorsed all those people. All Republicans. And what he did was he brought these politicians into the company of the most racist rabbis in New York City. How did he do it? So, for example, Abraham Hecht, who we looked at earlier, Hikind would bring Hecht, kind of create the glue to bring them into the thrall of these Republican candidates for mayor, for governor, for senator. And as he explained, the concept is a very simple one, Hikind says. A block vote. Sometimes you have to go out and convince people to vote for me. Then I have to convince your wife, then your son. But in this community, talking about ultra-Orthodox community, when I get the Rebbe, then probably I'll get the whole community. So this is what he did. You know, he managed to parlay the votes of the community and to funnel them towards the Republican Party by leveraging the support of these racist rabbis, the most racist rabbis in New York City. Mayor after mayor, politician after politician, Hikind was the glue that made it happen.